Imagine yourself in a boat, drifting in the middle of an endless ocean. The water beneath you is dark and unfathomably deep, hiding monstrous remnants of the past. Sunken ships, giant structures frozen in time. Your breath quickens, your heart pounds in your chest, and you can't bring yourself to look down. This is submechanophobia, the fear of submerged artificial objects. But not all fears are tied to something so grand. Some phobias induce sheer terror in response to things most people wouldn't even notice. For example, urotophobia, the fear of female genitalia, or omphalophobia, the fear of ordinary buttons. Yes, for some individuals, even this everyday object can trigger a panic attack. Fear is more than just an emotion. It is a shadow that follows us, taking on the most unexpected forms. Today, we will venture into the darkest corners of the human mind and explore the phobia iceberg, from the most common fears to those that seem utterly inexplicable. Are you ready? Then let's dive in. If this video gets 20,000 likes, we'll make a second part. Though honestly, I hope it doesn't, because making this episode was truly unsettling. Level 1. Claustrophobia. The fear of confined spaces manifests as anxiety or panic attacks in elevators, basements, tunnels, and other enclosed environments. It is often linked to a sense of losing control. Apeirophobia, the fear of flying. A person with apeirophobia may experience severe anxiety before a flight and, in extreme cases, avoid air travel altogether. Social phobia, social anxiety disorder. The fear of social interactions. It can manifest as a fear of public speaking, talking to strangers, or even handling everyday situations like making phone calls. Arachnophobia. The fear of spiders, one of the most common animal phobias. Even the sight of a small spider or its image can trigger intense fear, likely due to an instinctive reaction to potential danger. Acrophobia. The fear of heights. People with acrophobia may experience dizziness, weakness in the legs, or even panic attacks when standing at great heights, such as on balconies, staircases, or bridges. Insectophobia. Entomophobia. The fear of insects. Those who suffer from this phobia feel extreme anxiety or panic at the sight of bugs, even if they pose no real threat. This fear may stem from an evolutionary response to harmful bites or a past traumatic experience. Nyctophobia. The fear of darkness. While common in children, this fear can persist into adulthood. It is associated with the fear of the unknown and the inability to control one's surroundings, often leading to anxiety, an increased heart rate, and even panic attacks. Coulrophobia. The fear of clowns. This phobia stems from their unnatural appearance, exaggerated makeup, and overly expressive behavior, which can evoke feelings of unease and discomfort in some people. Triskaidekaphobia. The fear of the number 13. Rooted in superstitions and cultural beliefs that deem the number unlucky, this phobia causes anxiety when encountering the number in any form. Hemophobia. The fear of sharp objects. Those with this phobia may feel anxious around needles, knives, pins, and other pointed items. In severe cases, it can interfere with daily life, such as avoiding medical procedures due to fear of needles. Glossophobia. Also known as speech anxiety, glossophobia is the fear of public speaking. The word comes from the Greek glossa, tongue, and phobos, fear. While some people experience only this fear, others may have additional social phobias or anxiety disorders. Hydrophobia. The fear of water. A person with hydrophobia may feel intense fear around bodies of water, pools, or even bathtubs. This phobia may arise from traumatic experiences involving water or a fear of drowning. It can also be a symptom of rabies. Mysophobia, the fear of germs and bacteria. People with mysophobia may avoid touching surfaces, wash their hands excessively, or frequently use disinfectants. In extreme cases, it can develop into obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD, apeirophobia, a specific phobia characterized by an irrational and obsessive fear of fire. It includes the fear of being burned alive, suffering burns, or losing property in a fire. Apeirophobia is common among individuals who have survived wars, natural disasters, technological accidents, or who have witnessed fires. However, it can also develop after watching distressing media reports or films about fires. In some cases, apeirophobia stems from childhood fears. Ichthyophobia, the fear of fish, which can range from mild discomfort to full-blown panic at the sight of even a small aquarium fish. Those with ichthyophobia may avoid not only live fish, but also images of fish, fish markets, and water-related places such as beaches and aquariums. Some people fear both living fish and dead ones found in grocery stores or restaurants. Even the smell of fish can cause distress. In extreme cases, accidental contact with a fish, such as while swimming in the ocean, can provoke panic or disgust. Level 2. Phobias. Thanatophobia, fear of dogs. Thanatophobia is an intense and irrational fear of dogs that can disrupt daily life. It often stems from traumatic experiences, such as being bitten in childhood, but can also develop from witnessing attacks or being raised with negative beliefs about dogs. People with cynophobia may avoid parks, change routes to steer clear of dogs, or refuse to visit homes with pets. In severe cases, symptoms include rapid heartbeat, trembling, sweating, dizziness, and even panic attacks. Autophobia, fear of being alone. Autophobia is an overwhelming fear of solitude, even in safe environments. It can arise from childhood trauma, low self-esteem, or an anxious attachment style. Those with this condition may fear both physical loneliness and emotional abandonment, leading to excessive dependence on social interactions. Severe cases may result in avoiding solo activities, refusing to travel alone, and staying in unhealthy relationships due to the fear of isolation. Ophidiophobia, fear of snakes. Ophidiophobia is a widespread fear of snakes, often believed to have evolutionary roots since many snake species are venomous. This fear can be instinctive or develop through negative experiences. Sufferers may experience anxiety when seeing snake images or hearing about them. In extreme cases, the fear extends to avoiding forests, parks, or pet stores where snakes might be present. Distichophobia, fear of accidents. Distichophobia is an excessive fear of accidents, regardless of their location, at home, work, or on the road. This fear stems from personal experiences with serious accidents or witnessing harm to others. It can lead to chronic anxiety, excessive caution, and avoiding any situation perceived as risky. This phobia is closely related to amaxophobia, the fear of driving, which can develop after traumatic road incidents. Zoophobia, generalized fear of animals. Unlike specific phobias such as arachnophobia, fear of spiders, or cynophobia, fear of dogs, zoophobia encompasses a broad fear of all animals. It can manifest as mild discomfort or full-blown panic attacks. People with zoophobia may avoid places with animals, experience anxiety from images or discussions about animals, and steer clear of even domesticated pets. Necrophobia, fear of death and the dead. Necrophobia is an obsessive fear of death and anything related to it, including corpses, funerals, cemeteries, and even discussions about mortality. The mere thought of death can trigger panic, leading individuals to avoid situations, locations, or conversations that remind them of it. This fear can significantly disrupt daily life and cause extreme avoidance behaviors. Toxophobia, fear of poisoning. Toxophobia is an irrational fear of being poisoned, leading individuals to be extremely cautious about what they consume. This fear extends to food, beverages, medications, and even environmental toxins. Those with toxophobia may obsessively check expiration dates, avoid eating outside, refuse necessary medications, or fear exposure to chemicals in public places. Nosocomophobia, fear of hospitals. Nosocomophobia is the fear of hospitals and medical settings. Those with this phobia may avoid seeking medical care even in emergencies. The sight of medical staff, hospital equipment, or the smell of antiseptics can trigger severe anxiety, making routine medical visits a challenge.
Katagelophobia, the fear of ridicule or mockery from others. This phobia is far deeper than simple shyness or embarrassment and can trigger genuine panic in a person facing even slightly tense social situations. Someone with katagelophobia is constantly preoccupied with how others perceive them. Any interaction feels like a potential source of mockery, humiliation, or rejection. People with this fear are especially sensitive to remarks, jokes, or even innocent laughter in a group taking it personally. Katagelophobia severely limits a person's life, compelling them to avoid all social contact. For example, they fear public speaking, worrying their performance will be seen as foolish or laughable. Even minor mistakes or hesitations can feel catastrophic, reinforcing their internal fear of possible humiliation. Everyday communication becomes a true ordeal for someone with katagelophobia. They avoid situations where they might become the focus of attention: parties, meetings, trips to cafes or cinemas, or group events. Sometimes this fear is so intense that the person avoids new acquaintances entirely, preferring solitude and restricting their social circle to a minimum. Chimetrophobia, an irrational and obsessive fear of cemeteries. People with this phobia experience intense anxiety at the thought of visiting a cemetery or even hearing it mentioned. Symptoms of chimetrophobia can include both physical and psychological manifestations. Physical symptoms often involve a racing heartbeat, shortness of breath, sweating, trembling, and nausea. Psychological symptoms include feelings of panic, anxiety, and intrusive thoughts about death or supernatural phenomena. Hemophobia, the fear of blood, an irrational and obsessive dread of seeing blood that can provoke strong physiological and emotional reactions. People with this phobia experience extreme anxiety or panic at the sight of blood, even in small amounts. The causes of hemophobia are varied. One factor is genetic predisposition. Individuals with a family history of anxiety disorders or phobias are at higher risk. Additionally, traumatic experiences involving blood, such as a serious injury or a medical procedure with significant bleeding, can act as a trigger for this fear. Family environment also plays a role. If a child observes a strong fear response to blood in parents or close relatives, it can contribute to developing the phobia. Hemophobia is one of the few phobias where the body's reaction follows an unusual pattern. Instead of heightened sympathetic nervous system activity, it suppresses it, leading to fainting. In its mild form, hemophobia affects 3 to 4% of the population, but the severe form, accompanied by fainting, occurs in 15% of those with the phobia. Many people with hemophobia fear even images of blood, not just its physical presence. Thanatophobia, the fear of death, an obsessive and intense dread of one's own mortality or the death of loved ones. This fear goes beyond the natural instinct for self-preservation and can significantly impact daily life. People with thanatophobia often avoid situations that remind them of death. They may refuse to attend funerals, avoid conversations on the topic, and steer clear of places associated with death, such as cemeteries or hospitals. They may also display excessive caution, avoiding actions they believe could lead to death, even if no real threat exists. Research suggests that fear of death is more common among younger people than older ones. Over time, most people learn to accept its inevitability. Some philosophers, like Epicurus, argued that fear of death is irrational because once a person dies, they can no longer experience suffering. In ancient Egypt, death was seen not as an end but as a transition to another life, so Egyptians feared it less than many modern people do. Siderodromophobia, the fear of traveling by train or being near railway tracks. People with this fear dread train collisions, fellow passengers, the sight of trains, trams, subways, or passing locomotives. When they see a train, they may feel paralyzed, losing the ability to think clearly. This fear prevents them from thinking rationally or handling everyday tasks. The term siderodromophobia comes from the Greek word sideros, iron, and dromos, road. This fear was first studied in the 19th century when railways became widespread. At the time, train madness was thought to result from the human brain's struggle to adapt to the new, unfamiliar speed of trains. Some famous individuals, like the great writer Leo Tolstoy, reportedly experienced anxiety during train travel. In some cases, the fear isn't about trains themselves, but related elements like tunnels, bridges, or high platforms. Thanatophobia, an irrational fear of deep bodies of water such as oceans, seas, lakes, or even deep pools. People with this fear may feel anxious or panicked not only when in deep water, but also when looking at its vast expanse. For some, even images of deep water trigger discomfort. One of the most common fears in thanatophobia is the idea that something massive lurks beneath the surface. Even shipwrecks on the ocean floor can evoke panic, creating a sense of something enormous and inexplicable. For many, the fear intensifies because it's impossible to see what lies below. In ocean depths, light disappears completely beyond 1,000 meters, turning the space into an impenetrable black abyss. Megalophobia, an irrational fear of large objects such as massive buildings, giant statues, huge ships, or natural formations like mountains or icebergs. This fear can manifest in various forms. Some fear only man-made structures, others dread natural objects, while some feel anxious about anything significantly larger than human scale. Many with megalophobia feel uneasy viewing photos or videos of large objects, especially when filmed from low angles, creating a sense of overwhelming pressure. There's a theory that megalophobia is linked to humanity's primal fears of natural disasters and dominant entities. In ancient times, people may have feared massive animals or events like tsunamis or volcanic eruptions. One of the most terrifying objects for megalophobes is the Saturn V rocket, standing 110 meters tall. Many feel genuine horror imagining themselves at its base. Astrophobia, the fear of thunder and lightning, which can cause intense anxiety, panic, and even physical symptoms. While more common in children, it persists into adulthood for some, disrupting normal functioning during storms. The fear of thunder and lightning is one of humanity's oldest fears. Ancient cultures explained storms as divine anger. In Greek mythology, Zeus hurled lightning as punishment, while in Norse mythology, Thor controlled thunder and storms. Animals also suffer from astrophobia. They may panic during storms, hiding, trembling, or trying to flee when sensing atmospheric changes. Astrophobia can stem from traumatic experiences, such as being caught in a severe storm as a child, being outdoors during a lightning strike, or witnessing its destructive effects, which can cement the fear for life. Escalophobia, an irrational fear of escalators that can trigger anxiety, panic attacks, and avoidance of moving staircases. People with this fear may experience paralyzing dread when stepping onto an escalator, fearing falls, loss of balance, or getting stuck. In severe cases, they avoid places with escalators entirely, opting for stairs or elevators even if inconvenient. This fear may be caused by negative past experiences, like falling on an escalator, fear of machinery, anxiety disorders, or fear of heights, especially if the escalator is at a significant elevation. Some escalophobes fear their clothing or shoes might get caught in the mechanism, particularly if they've heard of escalator accidents. Chronophobia, an all-consuming fear of the concept of time itself. Unlike general anxiety about aging or approaching death, this fear can center on the very existence of time as a phenomenon. People with this phobia feel discomfort, anxiety, or even panic when looking at clocks, calendars, or anything reminding them of time's fleeting nature. One of the most common triggers for chronophobia is prolonged confinement in an enclosed space without external cues. Prisoners in solitary confinement often lose track of time, which can lead to a fear of its endless flow. Some chronophobes obsess over questions about the nature of time, infinity, or its inevitable progression, resulting in anxiety. Many writers and filmmakers have explored chronophobia, with characters trapped in time loops or unable to control time's flow, conveying similar feelings. The phobia may intensify during life transitions, like graduating school, university, retiring, or moving to a new city. Each time a person realizes time moves relentlessly forward, the phobia can flare up. Level 3. Trypophobia, an irrational fear or aversion to clusters of small holes, bumps, or repetitive patterns. People with trypophobia may experience anxiety, discomfort, or even panic attacks when seeing structures like honeycombs, lotus seed pods, corals, porous chocolate, or certain skin conditions. Although trypophobia isn't officially recognized as a phobia in medical manuals, millions worldwide feel strong repulsion towards such images. Some researchers believe trypophobia may be linked to an innate fear of venomous animals or infections, as many dangerous snakes, spiders, and amphibians have spotted or perforated skin, triggering a subconscious sense of threat. Genophobia, the fear of sexual contact in any form. This fear can manifest in various ways, from anxiety when discussing intimate topics to panic at the prospect of physical closeness. Unlike typical nervousness or discomfort about intimacy, genophobia can profoundly affect a person's personal life. Someone with this fear may feel romantic attraction or even sexual desire, but the act of sexual contact itself causes anxiety and stress. Causes may include trauma, religious upbringing, or negative early experiences. Apeirophobia, an irrational fear of cats, ranging from mild anxiety to panic at the sight of even a small kitten. People with this disorder avoid contact with cats, may fear their images, and even feel anxious at the mere mention of them. Interestingly, historical figures like Napoleon Bonaparte and Adolf Hitler reportedly suffered from apeirophobia, avoiding cats and feeling uneasy if one was nearby. Thanatophobia, an irrational but deeply rooted fear of being buried alive. In the past, this fear was so widespread that it led to precautions like special coffins with signaling devices, wake periods, and extended observation of the deceased before burial. Although modern medicine makes being buried alive extremely unlikely, the fear persists, especially among those with panic disorders or claustrophobia. People with claustrophobia often also have taphophobia, as the idea of being trapped in a coffin evokes sheer terror. In the 19th century, coffins were designed with alarms. During the Victorian era, fears of medical errors led to coffins with ventilation, bells, and air tubes, allowing someone who awoke underground to signal for help. Agliophobia, an irrational fear of ugliness, physical deformities, or deviations from conventional beauty standards. People with this disorder may feel anxiety or discomfort when seeing individuals with congenital or acquired physical differences and fear changes in their own appearance. This fear may stem from social anxiety, fear of ridicule, or internal concerns about one's looks. In extreme cases, agliophobia can lead to social isolation or obsessive control over one's appearance. The fear manifests in two forms. Some fear others' unconventional appearances and avoid those with distinctive features, while others excessively worry about their own looks, fearing they might become unattractive. This connects agliophobia to dysmorphophobia, a disorder where someone fixates on perceived flaws in their appearance, even if none exist. Emetophobia, an irrational fear of vomiting, encompassing fear of vomiting oneself, seeing others vomit, or even hearing about it. People with this disorder often avoid certain foods, public places, medical facilities, or situations where vomiting might theoretically occur. In extreme cases, this fear significantly restricts life, causing anxiety disorders or eating issues. Emetophobes may avoid alcohol due to fear of hangover-induced vomiting or skip medications if nausea is listed as a side effect. Caprophobia, the fear of excrement. People with this disorder may feel anxious not only about the act of defecation, but also about related sounds, smells, mentions of the topic, or public restrooms. In severe cases, caprophobia can lead to avoiding restrooms outside the home or even digestive problems from deliberately delaying defecation. Those with this fear rarely discuss it due to shame, which prevents them from seeking help and worsens their condition. Submechanophobia, the fear of Halloween and everything associated with it. This may include anxiety about the date itself, fear of spooky imagery, decorations, costumes, or sounds tied to the holiday. People with this disorder may panic at the sight of carved pumpkins, monster masks, bats, or horror movies traditionally linked to Halloween. The fear may stem from negative childhood experiences, religious beliefs associating the holiday with dark forces, or heightened sensitivity to frightening imagery. The phobia's name comes from the ancient Samhain festival. Halloween traces its roots to the Celtic Samhain, which marked the transition from summer to winter and was seen as a time when the boundary between the living and the dead grew thin. Level 4. Nomophobia. A modern
Level
disorder
for nomophobia,
characterized by an
a
intense
modern
fear of
disorder
being without a
characterized
mobile
by an
phone,
intense fear
internet,
of being
or the
without a
ability to
mobile
connect
phone,
with the outside
internet,
world.
or the ability
The
to
term
connect
comes
with
from
the
the
outside
English
world.
phrase
The term comes from the
nomophobia
English phrase
and describes the
nomophobia and
anxious state
describes
that
the
arises
anxious
when a
state
person
that
loses
arises
access to
when a
their
person
device,
loses
the
access to
battery
their
dies,
device.
there's no
The
signal,
battery
or
dies,
the internet
there's
is
no
unavailable.
signal, or the internet isn't
This fear
available.
is directly linked to technological dependency and social anxiety. People with nomophobia may experience panic attacks during sudden disconnections, check their phone hundreds of times a day, or even hold it while sleeping. Studies show that over 50% of smartphone users feel anxious when cut off from mobile connectivity. Many don't realize they're afraid until they're in a situation without phone access. The fear isn't so much about losing the device itself, but about being disconnected from news, communication, or information. Some users feel their phone vibrating even when it's not nearby, a phenomenon tied to anxious anticipation of notifications. Hippopotomonstrosesquippedaliophobia, an ironic name for the fear of long words, which is itself a long and complex word to pronounce. The term combines several roots: hippopo from hippopotamus, monstro from monster, sesqui meaning 1.5 foot or long word, and phobia for fear. Interestingly, this phobia is not officially recognized by the American Psychological Association as a distinct disorder. The name is often used humorously, highlighting the irony of someone fearing long words being confronted with such a lengthy term. It's believed this fear may stem from worries about mispronouncing long words or being mocked for it, especially during childhood or adolescence. People with this fear may feel discomfort or anxiety when needing to use or hear long words, which can affect their communication and confidence in public speaking. Gynophobia, an irrational fear of women that can manifest as anxiety, panic, or avoidance of interaction with females. Unlike mere shyness or social anxiety, this fear is obsessive and can hinder normal interactions with women in society, at work, or in personal life. Causes may include trauma, cultural norms, religious beliefs, or deep-seated psychological issues. In severe cases, individuals may avoid not only face-to-face contact, but also images of women, movies, or places where their presence is unavoidable. Gynophobes may fear women without feeling hostility toward them. This isn't misogyny, but an irrational fear that can cause distress to the sufferer. Some men develop gynophobia due to strict upbringing by a mother or other women in the family. It's less common than androphobia, fear of men. While fear of men is more prevalent, gynophobia is more often seen in individuals with high anxiety and social isolation. Apeirophobia, an irrational fear of the concept of infinity that can trigger anxiety, panic attacks, and existential dread. People with this disorder feel intense discomfort when contemplating the boundlessness of the universe, time, space, or numbers. This fear is often tied to the inability to comprehend or accept the idea of something without limits, a beginning or an end. Apeirophobia, an irrational fear of bridges that manifests as anxiety, panic, or avoidance of crossing them. People with this disorder may feel uneasy even looking at a bridge or thinking about an upcoming crossing. In the most severe cases, they may refuse trips requiring bridge crossings, significantly limiting their mobility. In the US, there are services to help apeirophobes cross particularly long bridges. For example, on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge in Florida, a service allows drivers to hand over control to a professional if they're too scared to drive themselves. Some apeirophobes fear not only the bridges themselves, but also what lies beneath: rivers, lakes, or seas, imagining falling into the water. They may panic during strong winds, believing the bridge might sway or collapse. Certain bridges can unsettle even those without the phobia. For instance, Japan's Akashi Kaikyo Bridge, the world's longest suspension bridge, can evoke fear due to its height and length. Real bridge collapses, like the Tacoma Narrows Bridge disaster in 1940, can serve as triggers for apeirophobia. Ergophobia, the fear of work. Ergophobia is an irrational fear tied to work, the workplace, or professional responsibilities. People with this disorder may feel anxious about going to work, fear colleagues, bosses, or worry about failing at tasks. In extreme cases, the phobia can lead to avoiding employment altogether and social isolation. This fear is often linked to anxiety disorders, perfectionism, or negative experiences like career failures, excessive workplace pressure, or fear of public speaking. Ergophobia can prevent someone from building a career, earning money, or feeling like a full member of society. Tetraphobia, an irrational fear of the number 4, typically considered a superstition prevalent in East Asian countries like China, Japan, and Korea. This fear stems from the fact that in some Asian languages the word for 4 sounds identical or very similar to the word for death. As a result, the number 4 is avoided in floor numbers, hospital rooms, car plates, and phone numbers. Just as Western buildings often skip the 13th floor due to fear of the number 13 in Asia, the 4th floor is frequently omitted, jumping straight to the 5th. Some hospitals and hotels in China, Japan, and Korea exclude room numbers with the digit 4, as patients or guests may refuse to stay in them. The number 4 in car plates, phone numbers, or addresses can lower their value, as it's seen as unlucky. To avoid distressing associations, in South Korea, the 4th floor in elevators is often labeled with an F instead of a digit. In Hong Kong, some residential buildings not only skip the 4th floor, but also any floor containing the digit 4, for example, going from the 39th to the 50th floor. Phagophobia, an irrational fear of swallowing that can cause anxiety, panic, or even refusal to eat. People with this disorder fear choking, suffocating, or experiencing pain while swallowing. As a result, they may avoid solid foods, stick to liquids, or stop eating altogether, leading to significant weight loss and health issues. Phagophobia often develops after a distressing experience, such as choking, throat surgery, or intense stress. Even a single incident of choking on food or liquid can trigger the fear, especially if it was traumatic. To avoid the risk of choking, phagophobes may chew food for several minutes before daring to swallow. Some with severe phagophobia avoid solid foods entirely, surviving on soups, purees, and yogurts. Pediophobia, an irrational fear of dolls that can cause anxiety, panic, or physical discomfort at the sight of toy, porcelain, or mechanical dolls. People with this fear may avoid toy stores, museums, movies featuring dolls, or even children's rooms. In severe cases, the fear extends beyond traditional dolls to mannequins, robotic toys, or animatronics. Pediophobia is often tied to their unnatural appearance, which mimics human features while remaining lifeless, an effect known as the uncanny valley, where human-like objects trigger subconscious unease. While some children fear dolls, most outgrow it, but for those with pediophobia, it can persist lifelong. Images of sinister dolls like Chucky or Annabelle in films amplify fear in susceptible individuals. A childhood scare, like a doll moving or making an unexpected sound, can leave a lasting psychological mark. Thanatophobia, a pathological fear of pregnancy and childbirth that can cause intense anxiety, panic attacks, and complete avoidance of pregnancy. This fear can be so severe that women consciously forgo having children even if they desire them. In extreme cases, thanatophobia can lead to depression, anxiety disorders, and avoidance of any topics related to motherhood. The fear may stem from dread of pain, complications, loss of bodily control, or negative stories about childbirth. It can affect women who have never given birth as well as those with traumatic experiences from a previous pregnancy. Some women experience nausea, dizziness, or panic attacks at the mere thought of pregnancy or childbirth. While thanatophobia is more common in women, some men fear their partner's pregnancy, especially if they worry about her health. To avoid natural childbirth, women with thanatophobia may insist on planned C-sections, even without medical necessity. Panphobia, a disorder where a person experiences constant, all-encompassing fear of the world around them. Unlike general anxiety, those with panphobia fear literally everything: people, events, the future, the unknown, their environment, and even their own thoughts. This fear may be linked to generalized anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, or chronic paranoia. People with panphobia feel perpetually in danger, even when no objective threats exist. Level 5. Iconophobia, an irrational fear of icons, religious paintings, or images of saints. People with this disorder may feel anxiety, discomfort, or panic when looking at religious imagery, whether in churches, museums, or homes with such paintings. In severe cases, they avoid places with icons, experience intrusive thoughts, or feel physically unwell when encountering them. This fear may stem from religious experiences, guilt, strict upbringing, fear of the supernatural, or the artistic style of religious images, which can seem eerie. Those raised in strict religious environments where fear of punishment was emphasized may feel anxious around icons as reminders of sin and accountability. Some find the elongated figures, large eyes, and stern expressions of saints unsettling. Certain iconophobes feel that figures and icons are watching them or could mystically influence their lives. Pedophobia, the fear of children. People with this phobia may avoid interacting with children, feel anxious in child-centric settings, or even find children's voices, games, or behavior repulsive. In some cases, the fear extends beyond infants and young children to teenagers. This fear may be triggered by negative experiences, heightened sensitivity to noise and chaos, anxiety disorders, or societal attitudes. Sometimes pedophobia is linked to personal trauma from childhood. Some fear only infants, others school-age children, and some all minors. Dementophobia, an irrational fear of losing one's mind, losing control over thoughts, or developing a mental illness. People with this phobia may constantly monitor their mental state, fear signs of insanity, and feel anxious about any changes in their thinking or perception. This fear is common among those with anxiety disorders, OCD, or hypochondria. Dementophobia may be triggered by fear of hereditary mental illnesses, extreme stress, or excessive self-observation. Some dementophobes lose confidence in their sanity after interacting with individuals diagnosed with mental disorders. They often avoid doctors, fearing a diagnosis that confirms their worst fears. Dementophobia can create a cycle of obsession. Fearing loss of sanity causes anxiety, which in turn heightens the sense of losing control. Scopophobia, the fear of being stared at or scrutinized by others. People with this disorder may feel intense anxiety when they sense others are watching them, even in harmless situations. In severe cases, scopophobia leads to avoiding public places, social interactions, or simple actions like leaving the house or joining conversations. This fear may be tied to social anxiety, negative past experiences like bullying, or heightened sensitivity to others' opinions. Some fear being judged, criticized, or ridiculed, even without cause. It often develops in those who experienced mockery, bullying, or excessive criticism in youth. Urotophobia, an irrational fear or intense aversion to female genitalia. People with this disorder may feel anxiety, panic, or physical discomfort when seeing, thinking about, or discussing female anatomy. This fear can disrupt intimate relationships, lead to avoidance of sexual activity, and even provoke self-loathing or discomfort toward a partner. Erotophobia is often linked to trauma, cultural taboos, or negative first sexual experiences. Phallophobia, the fear of erections. This phobia can affect both men and women, causing significant discomfort and impacting quality of life. While it may seem exclusive to women, men can also suffer, fearing their own erections or sexual intercourse. Phallophobia is often linked to other sexual phobias like genophobia. People with phallophobia may avoid intimate relationships, leading to personal and relational difficulties. Due to the intimate nature of the issue, many are reluctant to seek help, making diagnosis and case tracking challenging. Despite its complexity, phallophobia is treatable through psychotherapy, helping patients improve their quality of life and restore healthy sexual relationships. Menophobia, an irrational fear of menstruation that can affect both women and men. People with this fear may feel anxious, panicked, or physically unwell at the mention or sight of menstrual blood. While more common in women, men may also feel discomfort or anxiety when confronted with the topic. Some men with this fear avoid discussing menstruation, refuse to buy hygiene products for their partner, or feel anxious around menstrual blood. In some cultures, menstruation is still viewed as dirty or taboo, fostering shame and fear in women. Some women with severe menophobia fear pregnancy due to anticipated changes in their menstrual cycle or the need to deal with blood post-childbirth. Masklophobia, the fear of masks. People may encounter masks in carnivals, costumes, clowns, or animatronics. Those with this fear often feel intense anxiety when seeing a covered or distorted face due to the inability to discern what lies behind it. This fear may stem from childhood experiences, scary movies, fear of hidden faces, or evolutionary instincts tied to uncertainty and threat. Katagelophobia, the fear of empty, unfilled spaces that seem mysterious and frightening. For some, empty spaces symbolize isolation and lack of protection, amplifying the fear. In ancient times, being in open terrain without cover increased the risk of predator attacks, possibly embedding this instinct in humans. Like objects causing the uncanny valley effect, empty spaces feel wrong and unsettling. Dark, empty spaces evoke even greater fear due to the inability to see potential threats. Some feel anxious seeing blank white screens, clean borders, or empty rooms in video games. For some, katagelophobia is tied to a lack of meaning, existential anxiety, and fear of non-existence. Selenophobia, also known as lunophobia, this is the fear of the moon or even darkness on moonless nights. The full moon is the most frightening phase, as it's believed people commit more crimes, like murders, burglaries, and robberies, during this time. Fear of the full moon is called remophobia, a term coined after the book Remophobia, Fear of the Full Moon. The word selenophobia comes from the Greek selos, meaning full. Mythological reasons for selenophobia include beliefs that evil creatures inhabit the moon, or that a full moon can turn people into werewolves. Selenophobia can manifest in various physiological and psychological symptoms, such as muscle tension, chills, shortness of breath, dizziness, sweating, feeling trapped, and difficulty articulating words or sentences clearly. Those with this phobia grow increasingly fearful as evening approaches and dusk falls. They prepare for night by closing curtains and avoiding going outside after sunset. Omphalophobia, a rare and understudied phobia characterized by an irrational fear or aversion to navels. People with omphalophobia feel intense discomfort when seeing or touching a navel, their own or someone else's. This fear can vary from avoiding situations where navels might be visible to panic attacks upon contact with this body part. Interestingly, this phobia may be linked to childhood trauma or unpleasant memories involving the navel. For example, some recall being scared by stories that touching the navel could cause it to untie or lead to injury. There's also a theory that omphalophobia may relate to a subconscious fear of vulnerability. Phobophobia, a pathological condition where a person fears the sensation of fear itself.
This
or the
metafear
possibility
often
of
develops
experiencing
as
it.
a secondary symptom
This
alongside
metafear
existing
often
phobias
develops as
or
a
anxiety
secondary symptom
disorders.
alongside
For
existing
instance,
phobias or
someone who has had a
anxiety
panic
disorders.
attack in a specific
For instance,
situation
someone
may
who has
begin
had a
fearing
panic
its
attack in a
recurrence,
specific
creating a
situation
cycle of
may begin
anxiety.
fearing its
Notably,
recurrence, creating a
phobophobia
cycle
isn't
of
tied to
anxiety.
specific.
Notably, phobophobia isn't tied to specific external objects or situations like most phobias, but is directed inward toward one's own emotional reactions. This makes it particularly challenging to diagnose and treat. People with phobophobia are often in constant tension, anticipating fear, which significantly lowers their quality of life. Level 6. Nudophobia, a specific phobia characterized by an irrational fear of nudity, both one's own and others. People with this disorder may feel intense discomfort, anxiety, or panic at the thought of nudity, or in situations where exposure is possible, like locker rooms, beaches, or saunas. Interestingly, causes of nudophobia may tie to cultural norms viewing nudity as shameful or sinful. In other cases, it may stem from negative personal experiences with exposure, like childhood mockery or humiliation. Nudophobia can also be linked to low self-esteem and body dissatisfaction, intensifying fear of being seen unclothed. Those with this phobia often avoid situations involving nudity, prefer concealing clothing, and may struggle in intimate relationships. Submechanophobia, a specific phobia characterized by an irrational fear of man-made objects partially or fully submerged in water. Such objects include sunken ships, underwater statues, sea mines, animatronics in theme parks, or more mundane items like buoys, chains, and debris. The term submechanophobia emerged relatively recently in 2013 after a Reddit community was created to discuss this fear. Members share photos and discuss objects that evoke dread and repulsion. Causes of submechanophobia vary. Some researchers link it to fear of the unknown and the inability to see what lies beneath the water's surface. Visual distortions from water movement can make objects appear eerie or alive. Additionally, the human brain may instinctively react to foreign objects in natural environments, triggering a fight-or-flight response. Luophobia. Also known as venereophobia, this is the fear of sexually transmitted diseases like syphilis, gonorrhea, or HIV. Young people often suffer from this fear. Those with luophobia experience constant anxiety, are convinced they're infected even without symptoms, and fear visiting doctors due to potential diagnoses. They may avoid intimate relationships, leading to personal issues and reduced quality of life. Interestingly, luophobia can persist even in those fully cured of an STD who continue fearing reinfection. This phobia often accompanies other nervous disorders and mental illnesses, acting as a defense mechanism. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching.